Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual SAP Security Summit from Pathlock. My name is David Lloyd. I'm a specialist SAP security and compliance advisor here at Pathlock. It's a pleasure to have you all here today, and I promise it's going to be a high-value 90 minutes. I think that 90 minutes is going to go pretty quick because of the kind of content that we've got. Today, we're going to be talking about the gaps that often go unnoticed or are really difficult to find within SAP environments. So hidden risks and weaknesses, unsafe code, overexposed data, and why the limitations of traditional tools make it almost impossible to find these vulnerabilities in your system. So our goal is very much to help you move from reactive fixes to more proactive, automated protection using smarter strategies and tools designed for modern SAP landscapes. First off, though, just a little bit of housekeeping. So the summit's going to run for 90 minutes. You will see on your screens the ability to submit questions via the Q&A box. Feel free to submit these at any point. And actually, in between each session or at the end of each session, we're going to put aside 5 minutes for Q&A. And so anything pertaining to a certain session, feel free to drop questions in at any point that you like. You'll also, at the very end of the webinar, of course, receive slides and a recording, so don't worry too much about making frantic notes as we go through these sessions. Next, let me introduce you to our speakers and our panelists of experts. So first off, we have Jonathan Stross, who's an SAP security analyst with a very sharp eye for surfacing hidden vulnerabilities within SAP systems and has discovered quite a few himself, which have ended up as SAP patches. We've also got Ralph Kempf, who is an SAP security advisor focused on helping companies strengthen threat detection and response. We've got Clemens Guetta, who is an SAP architect and an expert in the technical depths of large, complex SAP landscapes. And there's myself. So I'm an SAP security compliance advisor, worked across many industries to align security, compliance, and access governance. So I'm thrilled to be sharing this session with all of these speakers, and they're also going to be part of our panel as well for any Q&A that comes along. So looking forward to a lot of their insights. So here's what we're going to be covering today. We'll kick off with a short introduction on why SAP security needs a modern, affordable strategy and how this summit ties into that bigger picture. Then we'll go step by step through 4 focus sessions. So we're going to start with how to find and fix hidden SAP vulnerabilities. There's potentially thousands of vulnerabilities in an SAP environment and many more being discovered every day. And those familiar with SAP Patch Tuesday will be well aware of this. And of course, even doing a check today on finding vulnerabilities in an SAP system, in a week's time, it could be completely different. Any manner of changes that take place in an SAP environment can easily reintroduce a weakness. We'll also look at how to secure custom code and change management. So custom code is a highly targeted area for attackers or bad actors to infiltrate and gain access to SAP systems. One thing you'll see in this session is how worryingly easy it is to actually gain access to an SAP system through normal ABAP code, or seemingly normal ABAP code, let's say. Then we're going to have a session on how to detect real-time threats using the assumed breach approach. So real-time threats are important to monitor. If you think of a vulnerability as a potential weakness in your security, an active threat is somebody or something attempting to actually exploit that vulnerability. So it's important, if you've not had a chance to remediate a vulnerability, that you've got active threat detection in place that's monitoring your system at all times. And then we're going to finish off with how to enforce continuous compliance with SAP application profiler. So each session is about 20 minutes. And like I mentioned before, after each 20-minute session, we've got a sort of 5-minute slot where we can answer questions live with the panel. Finally, before I hand it over, as promised, everybody attending today gets free access to our SAP vulnerability scanner. You can download it directly from the webinar panel. So just click the green Get Free Vulnerability Scanner button. That gives you a complete risk snapshot in under 2 hours, and it's absolutely free. So if you want to really get a good idea of your security posture in SAP, I couldn't recommend it enough. It can be installed in probably less than an hour, 2 hours max, and you'll get a really, really good idea of the posture of your SAP security and what kind of steps you might need to take to remove those vulnerabilities. And this is not just an extra for us. Actual it's security and have a very centric focus on things. But we believe that vulnerability scanning is kind of a prerequisite to all other kinds of SAP security monitoring. Everybody's very knowledgeable about access governance and controls, but of course not 100% foolproof if you've got open doors, broken windows because the application itself isn't secure. So we're one of the few companies in the SAP security space that can actually provide 360-degree security. So we're looking at vulnerability scanning and management, application access governance, identity management, and also dynamic access control. So we've even got capabilities to take a real-time control of executing transactions in SAP and control it according to policy, maybe requiring secondary authentication before a transaction completes, or maybe hiding, masking sensitive data in real time. Anyway, back to our main agenda. So let's jump straight into the first session on the agenda. Hand over to Jonathan, who's going to take us through why SAP security needs modern, affordable strategy that's not going to blow the budget. So Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for the great introduction. Also for the sneak peeks on what to expect today. Yeah, quite a lot of interesting topics, especially for me personally, as my main focus cybersecurity application controls, and I would directly start. Let's see. I am still not able, sadly, to move forward on the presentation. So David, if you could take over moving forward in the presentation. Why does SAP in generally need an affordable strategy, a modern affordable strategy? Let me see. Sadly, I'm still not able to see, but I will just take over and share my screen because I do also have the slides, of course, locally. Let me see. Allow. Please let me know once you are able to see my screen. To the infinity and beyond. Now it should be sharing. Is anyone able to see my screen here?
I think we can. It says the need for real-time proactive security.
All right. All right, thank you.
We're on the right slide, yeah.
Here, all right. So, in general, why does, or in general, SAP systems are sadly sometimes still a little bit opinionated on cybersecurity topics, while roles and authorizations is like an own field of study, of course, in SAP. It doesn't typically, of course, stop there, and SAP is a high-value target. It's not a coincidence that there is an advertisement sentence by SAP, the best run SAP. That's a fact. Therefore, of course, you want to hit as a hacker, as an high-value targets, and then I would definitely go for an SAP system because finance, logistics, HR are digitalized with this particular system, And typically, yeah, you see among the SAP customers, industry leaders, and. So therefore, it is a good bet setting on as a hacker on specializing as hacker on SAP. The important thing to understand at the end, why is SAP, of course, introduced? It's, of course, due to the fact that SAP or this ERP system is digitalizing the business process, speeding up business in finance, in logistics, in HR. And generally, time is money. Every second, you have to interrupt a business process, of course. Someone else will be faster, or just the cost will be driven up. And important here to understand then, of course, vice versa, if this particular technology which is in use to speed up the process is then blocking the process, of course, that's then the bottleneck, and therefore every second that goes unnoticed that something odd is happening in the system or the system is being endangered, the damage, of course, compounds. We see here through each and every different field of business, different exploits, of course, being used, insider threats, external threats, supply chain attacks, and one of the most remember-worthy instances, we quite recently got called to a project helping out a little bit in the forensics. And we actually saw that there was in a custom report right before financial closing, emails being sent, very small emails being sent, but once at a time, to a Gmail address, to a non-corporate address, triggered from this very report. At the end, it turned out financial data was being leaked. And that is more common than you think. They're way different. That's just one example scenario which we've experienced. But data loss, especially in finance, or if you have intellectual property, real issue. In logistics, of course, vendor pricing. Who gets the better price? Therefore, this information is also considered to be, of course, highly confidential. So the issue in general is, of course, if we look at the classical SAP personnel, or at the classical IT department or overall IT, there are some people working 24/7, and typically those are SOC analysts, which are quite strong in the on the infrastructure level, but on the business processes side, and also everything which is on top of the application layer, might be that there is a blind eye. So typically we see that there is a blind eye, especially in with CM solutions where application data or application logs are not being properly reviewed. On the other hand side, it's not only about properly reviewing. The SOC team also needs to know, of course, what happens if. So what should I do if? And therefore, some basic understanding of SAP should be there, or to compensate some kind of automation. The classical controls we see, sadly, there are a little bit too slow. So IBM cost of data breach report actually also says that there is actually a quite large amount of latency until, even though having classical controls, an exploit is being tracked. I think it was like almost a little bit more than half a year actually, from first touch of system until really containment. And that just proves that classical controls sometimes are not enough. Really important where we want to be is a proactive automated detection. As mentioned, when you have an investment already running at SAP, you do not want to have to perform additional very big investments running it. We will see that in just a second. Important here really is that for proactive security, we should not just stick to the common or the audit type of, I just need to comply to certain standards. We really need to imagine how it is out of the attacker perspective. So here, starting to have an assume breach mindset, questioning every connection, questioning every business process, that security must be embedded and not bolted on. So we really need to expect any user or any interaction with the system that there is a slight likelihood that this can be also a malicious intent there. The important thing, of course, is whenever we're talking about now security principles, on the one hand side, my heart is, as a technician, of course, is full on assume breach mindset, multi-factor authentication wherever possible. So far, so good. But also just-in-time provisioning and. So you can have those kind of measurements really to a technical, very complex topic. But yeah, at the end, a paycheck needs to be paid, and a company can only pay a paycheck if the expenses overall are not exceeding, of course, the income. And here we need to take one step then also back in this particular approach of assume breach principle, a zero trust, and say, okay, well, on the one hand side, yes, we need to make it as secure as possible. But on the other hand side, SAP drives the digital business, and slowing it down will actually then also have some interception or some implications on the actual business process, and therefore, of course, for productivity, ultimately revenue and agility. So having too much controls will create some bottlenecks, of course, frustration and missed opportunities, but too little, and you will have undetected risks, failed audits, and. So you really need a trade-off here, and having such kind of a trade-off, especially also when we talk about investment, human capital is very expensive on the one hand side. We see on top people are, or the companies are willing to hire, but also having those experts in-house, that's something very hard to find those experts. And here you can compensate, of course, with having suitable tool sets and proper insights enablement in those kinds of areas. Especially when we break it down to the what SAP has become from classical ECC on-prem to from monoliths to hybrid cloud-based environments with multi-technologies, Fiori, BTP, SAP Analytics Cloud, and with own security demands, own technologies, different technologies in the belly. It's really impossible to actually get to that very state, having an expert for each and every topic. And therefore, what we see currently is that the responsibility is somehow fragmented across bases, developers, GRC, infrastructure, but mostly, sadly, siloed. And here, the issue really is that if a certain investment already has been made in SAP, ongoing support, and of course, if you now touch the whole topic of SAP security, you need to find a way how to then still have your return on investment on SAP, but still have protection and be performant in your business processes. And therefore, you need a concept which scales with your SAP journey, scales with your investment, but not breaking your investment. How could this look like? Quite simple, actually. So part of the reason why we have the Security Summit here today is that, we have seen in the market that there have been made very complex deals around providing automation and enablement and help around SAP security. And we decided we want to turn it a little bit around the market, upside down, and really give something back to the community to have a very transparent concept and very transparent approach to SAP security, which scales. On the one hand side, we need to understand that SAP shouldn't be anymore a siloed operation. It should be a general IT concern. And we understand us at Pathlock to be that very vendor which will help you to get or to build the bridge between your SAP security to your overall IT security. And depending where you are in your security journey, we do have a strategy that fits into your, we have something in our portfolio that suits your strategy. So here a screenshot actually from our website. I can highly recommend to go on that website, have clickable demos, so on and so forth. We will see today also some live demos here and there, but really important here. As mentioned, wherever you stand in your security journey, we do have a suitable enablement and offering for you. On the one hand side, I'm very, very, very proud to have actually the free of charge vulnerability management code scanning. We call it CAC3. And here you can, if you are getting started with your security journey, you have a free of charge tool you can use to assess the security posture of your system. If you're already then in the next step, focusing on basic hygiene of SAP systems, then we have our vulnerability management and code scanning, our essential package. Our essential package allows you to really do the, to get started, to do the out of our perspective, minimum, the bare minimum you need to do, the basic hygiene you need to do in your SAP system. If you want to add some runtime control, some real-time, some threat detection, for example, then we have our professional package where when you have already secured the front gates, then install cameras that your first security measurements are going into the right direction. We add to the vulnerability management and code scanning the threat detection and transport control for these kind of capabilities. And if you want to do, if you want to have full DevSecOps lifecycle, deep down insights into what is going on in the SAP system, we have our advanced offering. The important thing here, it really is, it starts with visibility. A security project grows over time, of course. And if the approach is defined on a one-hand side first manual, you can start with the automation. And here with vulnerability management would be a perfect fit for the internal audit, for example, or just for any SAP admin owner to actually harden then the system or to get an automated report. And with threat detection, for example, in the next step, then also to do those automatic countermeasurements if something goes wrong. So ultimately, your journey ends in continuous compliance and resilience. So this was our first session where we just kind of set the stage for what's up next. We will have now a little bit more on hands in system tied towards the functionalities and issues in SAP systems when it comes to monitoring. So far, are there any questions?
There are indeed a few, Jonathan, so many thanks for that. And the first question, or where to start with, actually, if we could just flick back to that previous slide a second. We've got a question that's come in that, assuming that the indicated fees are for each system line. I don't believe that is the case, but do you want to just clarify that, Jonathan?
Yes, that is also part of our differentiation in the overall or the change in our approach was twofold. On the one hand side, we wanted to be very, very transparent on the one hand side with the pricing and with the structure of what you get. On the other hand side, we wanted to not overcomplicate the entire pricing strategy by taking a whole lot of KPIs into account. We switched from the classical, please tell us your productive system count. And with that comes one dev, one QA, and maybe a staging system to overall user count. And the nice thing is about that there is actually for each module a cap. So you will not exceed a certain amount to spend. So for essential, for example, it doesn't matter if you now have 1 million systems in theory. You will never exceed, crunching the numbers in the heads, something around 100K. We do have there a bottom line. So there is in this pricing also built in a max out possibility. So even for huge landscapes as well as for small landscapes, we have a perfect fit, a very, very cheap fit to enable this functionality quite fast in your systems.
So, and just to add to that, anybody familiar with other vendors in this space, this is a seismic shift in the affordability of this kind of tool. We've tried to make it very simple, very easy to access these systems, and it relates back to my introduction. We as a company see this very much as a prerequisite to all other kinds of SAP security, to access governance, to dynamic security controls, to continuous controls monitoring. This is the starting place, making sure that you've got a digital vault around your core system before you start thinking about access governance. So it's a massive shift, and we think it's a complete change in this kind of tool within the industry. Now we've got a few other questions just before we move on. One around complexity. So Jonathan, in one of your slides, you mentioned about the complexity, and I think we generally talk about being able to detect, anything, 4,000 different checks, minimum 4,000 different checks per SAP system. Now that can be exponentially larger when you think that some of these weaknesses could appear more than once, like with code, for instance. It could, when you start bringing in non-production systems and interfaces, RFC connections, it can easily become exponential in the terms of the kind of weaknesses that might exist. And in fact, one thing that we know whenever we've done any scan, and we've scanned hundreds of thousands of SAP systems around the world, we've never found one yet that could not be compromised, and that's quite a scary thought. But a couple of questions related to that complexity. So firstly, are there any sort of SAP standard tools without going out to market that can provide any kind of help in this space?
Of course. So our recommendation would actually be to say, okay, if you're getting started in your security journey, it doesn't. I heard a metaphor quite soon. So let's imagine you have a house, and your house door is open. You have no locks, windows are open, anything. It doesn't help you much to have an AI-powered turret on the. Well, certainly it would help, an AI-powered turret on your rooftop, making sure no intruders get in. But it would be probably more feasible and also financially feasible to use what is there: a door, a lock, shutting the windows, and then you can start to invest in threat detection, cameras, countermeasurements, trap zone, and so forth. So SAP does do actually quite a good job already out of the box. There is the ABAP test cockpit, for example, the SAP code inspector, which are able to run custom code checks with a certain scope. So if you are starting with that topic, you can start there and then actually increase with, for example, the essential package here, the scope, as soon as you get a little bit more mature in the journey. Because on the other hand side, of course, we can now shoot all our 180 plus custom code scans. But if there is no process, no way of or internal process on how to remediate, it can be overwhelming, of course, if you do not find then the right scope and right approach. If you increase, of course, visibility on the one hand side, which is really important because you can only accept risks when you know you have them. But find their way getting there started and say, okay, well, I have that quite good with the SAP code inspector under control, for example. Now I can go for a proper code scanning solution, for example, to introduce. Of course, you can also directly go for code scanning, nothing stopping you, but it's already there in the SAP system. You can already test it out free of charge and get your first experiences there. And then also ask probably the vendors the right question about that. So on the one hand side, this is there. And on the other hand side, SAP also launches information and S-notes on hardening the corresponding other applications. So for example, the SAP Security Baseline template also comes with some sample reports. There you can use, of course, to already there assess the system. If you have a solution manager, there are the so-called self-optimization service checks. Those are for HANA data, HANA, for example, available. They are also available for the classical ECC systems. So that would be some good points to start if you are getting like really freshly into that topic, just getting a first-hand view. Other than that, of course, with our strategy, CAC free, you can also use that. It's a transport you deploy to your system with an integrated dashboard. So you know no information leaves your system, you deploy it, you run it, and then you get your first information on code scanning. Which kind of findings do I have? A little bit with a, I would say, a more enhanced scope than the ATC and the SCI. But yeah, as mentioned, could be second step or directly also first step.
Okay, and just very, very quickly before we move on, can we use AI tools to help?
Well, going back to my example with the AI turret, of course, yes, AI can be used 100%. There are a few things we need to have in mind. On the one hand side is the topic of trust boundaries. In my controls, I do need to have like a layer where I draw a trust boundary between, okay, do I now really admit this purchase order for $1 million? At the end, someone needs to be accountable, therefore, and you cannot really hold the AI accountable. Therefore, it would make sense in such kind of cases to, well, have an AI suggesting this particular person not to, or depending on, yeah, of course, the business context, not to grant or to grant this particular order. On the other hand side, whenever we are over automating things with AI, that can be also kind of a danger zone. Let's say AI is then in charge of deciding, yes, am I now blocking this particular person from the system, yes or no? Is of course an issue because, yeah, it's in some cases not behaving very deterministically, depending also on training and. So it's a danger zone. I would draw a trust boundary, but if you set the trust boundaries accordingly, correctly, or in a good way, it is a game changer in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness. And with the right personnel, prompting the right way, using AI the right way, not only large language models, it can be really a game changer and compensate to a certain extent, not to all of it, also the lack of resources.
Okay, great. There's a couple more questions come in, which I'll answer very, very quickly in the interest of just getting on to that next session. So we've had a question, does exactly system configuration, how to get access. It's essentially a subset of our main tool, our chargeable tool. So it does about 2,000 checks as opposed to 4,000. It is restricted to a single SAP system. That can still be a production SAP system. It's important to, you're still free to, of course, if you want to run it on non-prod, just to make sure it's not doing anything bad. But its idea is really you would run it on a production system ultimately, just to get an idea of that posture. It's a certified SAP add-on, so it's very, very quick to install, doesn't need any special hardware or anything like that. It does need some account setting up, but there are full details when you download that package of exactly what it will do and any prerequisites. And another question that's come in is asking whether the vulnerability scan is just for can be used for ECC. Absolutely, it can. Generally most people are on S4HANA or moving to S4HANA have it in their sites, but it will work for ECC and S4HANA. So with that, let me quickly move on to the next session. So I'd like to introduce you to Ralph Kempf, who's now going to talk about finding and fixing hidden SAP vulnerabilities. So over to you, Ralph.
Let's see. Maybe there is some issue still with the joining. If not, I will just continue sharing my screen. Right. So actually, those questions which were asked the question which have been asked are actually fitting perfectly into our next topic, finding and fixing SAP vulnerabilities. What we need to understand is, of course, again, it's like a mantra and almost in every session, is that there is definitely a big need for securing SAP systems. we see that overall the traffic and the targeting of SAP systems steadily, surely but steadily increases. We do see sadly that there is also a challenge with SAP security in general. Detection delays, for example, 53%. So in a study by Ponemon Institute, 53% of the questioned organizations said that it will take more or up to a year to detect actually a breach within SAP. That's an issue, of course, and that's not only an SAP problem in general. Until hackers do now actually are very, very keen on hiding. There is actually also an unofficial rumor out in the market that, of course, for those paid hackers, they do not get paid if they get caught, for example, in a certain time frame. So the interest here really is to be as stealthy as possible in the reconnaissance phase and get the information they need accordingly, and maybe at the end, if they have everything they need, then to kill the system. Also, we see here that, the pricing then, of course, of such breaches are actually increasing over and over. IBM is launching the cost of data breach report, and you also can see there in the numbers that the average cost of data breach is hitting all-time high after all-time high. So typically what we see when we run our applications, that there are more than 500 vulnerabilities, approximate on average about 80 missing patches, and a lot of custom ABAP code deployed on systems. And here we need to be especially critical. So there also Clemens will elaborate a little bit later on, because custom code is one of the most effective kind of entry points for especially third-party application, own homegrown applications, because as ABAP is integrating now many different technologies, concepts, and the attack surface there is quite big. We will see that also in just a second. More importantly is really why we all should kind of invest in SAP security and SAP security research is 72% of the world's beer is produced by SAP customers. So me being a German, if you want me to have a very bad time during Oktoberfest, then of course try to get to hack SAP systems or just shoot an globally targeting SAP hack. It will most likely hit one of my favorite breweries, and therefore result in an empty Oktoberfest. But jokes aside, we also see that throughout the years the art of exploitation got professional, more professional, and we see there also a clear roadmap between 2012, where the first kind of unconfirmed but known to the community exploit happened, where Anonymous exploited the Greek Ministry of Finance. Actually 2012, talking about Oktoberfest and beer, I think I had my first beer, but probably also on that very, very day, a lot of people had a few beers after a very stressful day getting their SAP system back on track. And this goes on, this list, of course. You can see also that is targeting not only one particular area. There are very, very different government departments, manufacturing, retail, supply chain, to high-tech, fintech. It's not only one area where it's being targeted. It's different, all areas which are being targeted. So why in general is it such a big topic securing SAP systems? As mentioned, I often use this metaphor. If you have an SAP system, you want to secure every aspect of it. If you resemble a house, you want to make sure that there is access tokens or a key that not everyone can get into the house. Also, the windows should be kind of safe, so not very easy to break in. Roof hatches should be secured, and. But this, and generally, if you apply it to an SAP system, is actually an issue. Because if you look at an SAP system in size, just to put it in perspective, Mac OS X has 84 million lines of code. SAP has 319, which is actually combining Mac OS X, Debian, Windows, Windows Vista, Office, Android, and Firefox all together. And there you can see this complexity of software, this size also of software, comes then, of course, also with potential entry vectors, of course, due to the size and due to the surface. This here is actually a screenshot out of an architectural screenshot of an SAP ERP 6.0 system. And everywhere where you see this red triangle is a potential interface for malicious actors to actually somehow intercept or to not intercept, not per se intercept, but to get a hold of the SAP system or one of the SAP core processes. And as you can see, it's quite significant, quite a lot. On the other hand side, it's only one system. It's not multi-systems. It's not including Java stacks here. It does, but does not include, for example, the cloud apps and other services which are maybe directly connected to SAP. Key challenges, if you break down, on the one hand side, you have the complexity of landscape, which we mentioned, the lack of visibility and monitoring, therefore. Having every single log into account, on average, an SAP system writes multi-million log entries at a day. There are thousands of security relevant settings. Also on the business process side, SODs and misconfiguration, then 0 days through patch management, for example. Access and identity management issues. Is this person really the one he's claiming to be? And on the other hand side, if SAP is phoning to other systems or being phoned by other systems, who has this periphery systems then also in real-time monitoring to check that the intents here are also not malicious. On top of that, personal interest, of course, you then have the market requirements, which you also, of course, need to prove. Quite complex issue, but therefore, actually, we do have a solution where we can support you with. On the one hand side, we introduced quite recently our CAC-free application, which is actually a free of charge risk assessments. It's 4 hours, less than 4 hours actually. You need no consultants, only your basis admin to install it and run the report. And then you get one report at the end and have scanned your entire system. So as mentioned, we're scanning here for the vulnerabilities and tied to profile parameters, for example, parameters to patching, to custom code. So it does have a Fiori dashboard with a PDF report you can use for internal audit, for example, or just for management to showcase, okay, this is the maturity posture. As mentioned, it's free of charge, does have a limited scope, but also if you say, okay, well, I want to continue this journey on SAP security, it takes approximately another hour to get you actually up and running and live with all of the platform's application. So short demo. I will therefore quickly hop into the actually what it is to the system, which actually has CAC Lite deployed. So therefore, just give me please a second. Connecting to the VPN. So hopefully also the connection doesn't drop. Therefore, let's see. All right. Here we go. So our CAC Lite, CAC free, is directly downloadable via the our webpage. You can navigate to pathlock.com, go to the CAC section, and directly there start the first download. There you will receive a zip file, and actually with the zip file you get the documentation and the actual software. What you can expect is you can get Need to log in. That one was the right one. If not, let's see. I will take a different system. Okay, just a second. Here we go. All right. So, sorry for that short inconvenience. So, what do you receive with our CAC Lite offering is actually the part of our full application CAC. As mentioned, it is a vulnerability assessment tool focusing on actually the custom code and the vulnerability part of it. It has a strapped down content where you can assess the system in terms of profile parameters, in terms of custom code, critical authorizations, and partially SOD. You receive one report where you can see an oversight over actually the different areas where those issues arise from. You see what are the top issues identified in the system. So those things like here, objects and customer namespace, here is one check, but this, as David said, occurred approximately over 400 times here in the system. And then you can download either a report or you can directly jump to the vulnerability monitor and actually also see then the corresponding information. So how often did you have which particular check or issue, and this also on which on the pinpointing to the system. So here in this example, we have here debug and replace quite often in the system, and this report you can then of course print out to the to hand over to management. You can even here drill down in the full version then of course to see a little bit more information. How long has it been open? Also then on remediation, how to fix it. But the CAC Lite offering stops here and says, okay, well, if you want to have additional insights, please get in contact with us and we will help you to get this additional insights on the actual findings. There we can select then the top 10 findings, for example, and then make sure to drill down mutually together with you. Jumping back to the presentation, as mentioned, it's really, really easy and fast to deploy. So you would go to the Pathlock website, navigate to the CAC offering, and then directly click here on free download. You will be asked to provide your email address, and then you directly receive the installation guide together with the software. It's actually 11 steps. The 11th step is you're done to install actually this software. So it's really, really easy. And at the end, you define the system scope for scanning. So it's the local system here. You get the output, which we just have seen, with the information on the findings, what parameters, for example, are here currently an issue. And afterwards, you can say, okay, well, either I want to directly start, for example, a journey, then we can directly integrate here in a matter of a few days, actually a full version where we can then increase the scope of scanning quite fastly. As mentioned, the tool is free of charge. It is really, really simple to install. It takes 4 hours, typically somewhere between 1 and 2 days, with change management. So from start to end, the actual installation activity is way shorter, and therefore, quite fast. And you directly get insights. Just a note on here for projects where we have been working actually on this kind of technology with Microsoft, for example, with Toyota, for example, Allison Transmission, especially Allison Transmission with the CAC Lite offering, for example. and yeah, are now successfully, securely running our software. Any questions so far?
Thanks for that session, John, and for taking over from Ralph, who's got some technical issues, but we're still keeping very well on track. So it's great that you do all of his material as well. There are a couple of questions that have come in actually. So we've not mentioned anything about SAP RISE right now. Can any of the other panel members talk about our capabilities with RISE?
Of course. So if you have an on-prem system, if you have a RISE system, that's not an issue. We can support you with CAC Lite in either RISE or on-prem. Public cloud is currently not in scope of the CAC free offering, as they're of course introducing custom code or this and a certified ABAP add-on is currently not possible. So we support the classical S4 systems, but also the more outdated systems, older systems. ECC we can also run on Solution Manager, for example. That's also possible. In general, if you pick and choose to use Pathlock vulnerability management, we have a wide variety of actually applications we can support. So that's from BobJ, for example, to Java stacks, standalone HANA databases, scanning standalone HANA databases, for example, so quite variety, especially coming back to your question. Yes, we support. We are RISE certified, so you can actually run also CAC free on RISE. Right.
Okay, great. And typically, in terms of the checks that we do, what are the comparisons or differentiators between what we do with CAC and what SAP CVA can do?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. That's a very good question. So CVA, Code Vulnerability Analyzer, is SAP's own home-built tool for scanning custom code security issues. On the one hand side, yeah, they are introducing, or they are doing a very, very good job in introducing new custom code patterns, of course, or code patterns to scan. On the other hand side, of course, yeah, at the end, everything comes with a price. So on the one hand side, if we talk about the technology, what is different? Yeah, we do focus on the same kind of scope. We have in scope the security of code, also compliance of code. Focus also a little bit on the yeah, robustness, for example. So also performance a little bit, which SAP does also. So they might have a little bit to the left and to the right other checks than we have. But overall, the scope is quite the same. But yeah, the pricing will be 100% different. And the customizability with our tool, that's the biggest, I would say, differentiator, is certainly with us, you can build custom patterns, you can schedule those patterns for automatic execution, and you can use this information also context-based in threat detection, for example. So if someone is running a transaction where the source code below has critical vulnerabilities, for example, an SQL injection possibility, we can alert whenever this particular report or T code is being executed based upon the scanning.
Cool. And
maybe
on
one addition.
in a similar. Oh, sorry. Go on, Clemens.
That's one addition, because the question was also about the number. CVA has round about 75 checks, and Pathlock provides for ABAP, and Pathlock provides a little bit more than double of these checks numbers for ABAP, and we have also the Fiori code scanning capabilities CVA does not have. Just as an addition.
Oh yeah, right. I need to get a sip of a coffee. Good reminder. Thank you.
Right. And a similar line of question, one of the attendees is using risk management in SAP GRC, which is good at covering some of the major areas. What differentiators do we have in comparison to SAP GRC risk management?
Very good question. So while GRC risk management mainly focuses on or to some extent on SODs and critical authorizations, we do focus also on different aspects about SAP security. The point is SAP security does have way different technology, not only the application stack, the ABAP stack, for example, in scope. The ABAP stack, there's a database, there is an operating system, there's maybe infrastructure, which is not taken into account. If I have an unpatched database, for example, or an insecure configured Microsoft SQL database below my SAP system, that's where the key differentiator is, as we implement hardening requirements from actually Microsoft to harden the database accordingly with the state-of-the-art settings. That is one of the key differentiators, especially when we talk about the cybersecurity, the settings part of it, where we are focusing not only on SODs and authorizations, but yeah, you can also release a purchase order by just exploiting the database.
Right, thanks, John. John, we'll move on to the next session in the interest of time now. And if you could just stop sharing your screen and we can move back through to the slides.
David, do you hear me now?
We can hear you, Ralph.
Okay.
Yes, hello, Ralph.
Maybe the next afternoon session I've completely rebooted the notebook. Maybe now it works. Sorry for that. So is my video also active?
Yes.
Great to see you, Ralph.
Hi, Ralph. Great to see you.
Sorry,
We're over the technical issues. Yeah.
Yesterday and a few reboots. Now it works. Okay, for the afternoon I will do the session myself.
All right.
Right. Okay. So thanks again, John, and for that. So now we're going to move on to a session around secure custom code and change management, which Clements is going to lead. As I mentioned before, he's an SAP architect here at Pathlock. So he's going to walk us through how risky ABAP code, unsafe transports, and lack of control can quietly open up quite serious exposures. So over to you, Clements.
Thank you, and welcome from my side. I tried to speed up a little bit because due to the technical issues, we are a little bit out of time. But yeah, if you have questions, we will focus on it for sure. Change management is a key of SAP. You have your dev system, you have your QA landscape, you have our system, you have your production system. And changes between are done via transports. You have your custom codes, most likely. Some SAP customers of us have thousands, 10,000s of transactions, custom transactions, and it is always a challenge. And so what you can say, an SAP system is only as secure as your code and changes you deploy. What is the problem? And I will not focus on the whole field of problems because there are way too many to discuss in this short session. I will just call one session or one problem. Compliance and security is a problem. And we will focus on one specific case in the following minutes where we have, for example, missing authorities. We have call statements which are not understood. And we have overall the problem that we have on the one hand side, the developers. They have the technical knowledge. We have on the other hand side, the business users. They understand the business. And on the third hand, we have everything around the change management, the security team, and so on. And everyone only understands their silo. And if you have backdoors in an upper program, most likely it will not be detected. You can add into transports something like an extra. It means that it's automatically executed while you start. And this can lead at the end in a privilege escalation. And the biggest problem of all this is that SAP standard tools miss to check this risk. If you focus on ABAP test cockpit, ATC, for example, for custom code, you have the problem, there's no security checks. It's focusing on syntax, on code quality, and so on, but not on syntax. And so you have a challenge to have some experts, or you need tools. And what I want to focus on now is one example in 2020 happened at an energy company. They had a report. I will also show in the demo later a similar way, at least. It's very easier my way and easy to detect everything. But I want you just to follow me a little bit into this demo in a few minutes. And they had a report which was imported into their production system with an expert. And since by import, this expert is executed, he got a user with sub-all in client 000. And obviously, sub-all means you have authorization to do everything. Client 000 means you can you have the cust or you have the main client for all the security and basic configuration things, and you can just take over the whole system with this authorization. And the developer itself just needs to do something on the development system and nothing else. And at the end, some data was exploited, access to financial data. And this is obviously, I think everyone understands, a big problem, especially since it's not traceable by default. And what was root cause? No security control for custom code or transport logic. Yeah, this is a risk, and the biggest problem is developers have on development system a lot of authorization, and they need it. It's not avoidable because obviously they need to change code, and this is a risk. And business user and security often does not understand the whole content, especially since custom code is sometimes 10,000s of lines of code. So what we will go through in the live demo in around about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I will show you a report. I will shortly explain it to you. I will show you what is the standard code scanning output compared to Pavlok. And I will show you what happens if you transport it into the system. So let's go on. And just makes takeaway. We have today a little bit of technical problems. So we cannot join our VPN and the slides. So we will have all the problems just for you to understand what is the problem a little bit. Sorry for this, but we try to make it as good as possible. And this is why I now focus on the takeaways first and make the demo later, so I can join the VPN. So what is my takeaway message I want to show with you? I have to say SAP standard tools are for security not enough. It's just not enough. There's nothing to it. You will miss exploitable logic. You will miss dangerous transports. You can even transport users. You can change passwords if you are working with passwords in your system. And all this is not changeable at all. Second challenge is, or second point is, you need a code scanning and transport tool. I would like you, if you go with Pavlok, but you need something, this is important, to scan custom code for critical risks, and especially also blocks and risky transport in real time. Yeah, and the last point is you need the security without slowing down the dev teams. This is a hard challenge, and it's not perfectly done in all, but we try to embed our checks as early and as convenient for the developers, so it's easy to handle and everyone can apply it, and you on the other hand side have your audit-ready changes. With that said, I want to start short demo. Let me share my screen. So. I hope you can see my ABAP system now. And we have also UIs in Fiori, where you can then see the audit information. But what I want to show you today is this exploit, because it's so easy. Everyone needs to fear it. And this is my point here. I want to show you. So let me show very short just the report you can use. I just use one BAPI, which is open for creating users, and create a user and call it hacker 11 to make it easy, and give it a password. And in the second step, I assign sub-author view to this user. So obviously, a user will be created, and then user gets sub-author view. This is a compliance issue and also a security issue. If I check now with ATC default variant, this is what SAP offers for each and every system for free. You will see you have a finding, but the only finding is that I have a variable not from the right type. A formal parameter is incompatible with the actual parameter. This is something, at the end, from security perspective, it doesn't matter at all. So we have an extremely problematic report, but we don't know about it by the standard tools. If I scan now with Pavlok, we have an ATC integration, so you can also use the same functionalities here, an own variant, and with this variant you can do. And the good thing is all developers know how to deal with ATC, all the ABAP developers, and it's also included in the IDEs, for example. And here you get information. We have a hard-coded password, for example. We have a user creation and profile assignment. Don't want to go too much in detail now because of the time. And you get this information, and everything is power one. So you as an analyst, you as an transport, whatever responsible, know, okay, we have here an issue. Compared to ATC, which is saying no, nothing. But now back, let's assume I, as a developer, just ignore this and I try to release it. Okay, this is not locked. It's also not really important. But if I now release it, with SAP standard tools, I can release it. And you need something to block it. And Pavlok Transport Control, for example, allows you to give you feedback that this transport has problems. I already trusted myself to allow me to transport it. Because of the time, I cannot show you the whole story of it. But you will get now insights that this extra is potentially critical. And especially also the program itself is critical, and this combination should not be transported. But obviously you have a chance for ICE principle and so on to transport it. And if I transport it now, it will be normally transported, and I can import it into my test system. Just show it to you. What we have. And I was logged in and everything, but I needed to leave VPN, and so it takes me, unfortunately, 1 more minute, but it's fast. So if I deactivated transport control on this system to show it faster, I will just import it right now and say, go for it. What happens now in the back end is, first of all, this report will be imported, as always. And the second point which is done is the exploit is executed. It is done in client 000 with user Datic. So he's also allowed to create users, for example. And if I now try to log in with hacker 11, we created right now with start 1, 2, 3, it says, okay, because user was new, I need to add new password. And I can go to SU01, for example, look for my user. Oh, was 0 too much? Sorry. Look into it. It was created by Datic. It was created right now. And I could also go to the change docs and see what roles it has. And it will say me it's sub all assigned by DEDIC and so on. And what is the problem? And this is my last thing I will tell you right now. The problem is it was just a report of 15 lines of code. If you have any custom code on your end, which has 10,000 of code, it just needs to be this 15 lines of code somewhere, and you need to miss it, and you have this problem. And with that said, I'm done with this part of the session. I need to leave now the VPN, otherwise I will not see anything.
Wow, Clemens, it is alarming how easy it is through custom code to hack into an SAP system. It's so easy, but also so difficult to check unless you've got tools like this which can do that kind of check. Just wondered if any of the other panel members, now we've got Ralph on board, if there's any other comments. We do have a couple more questions, but if there's anything that John or Ralph want to add on the back of Clemens's presentation.
Well, I could probably talk for hours on that very topic. Custom code is really, on the one, a blessing and a curse. There is, of course, the need to customize applications on the one hand side, but on the other hand side, yeah, it poses real threats, either willingly or unwillingly. Either you exactly know what you do. That's especially then dangerous if you use technologies to evade standard onboard tools to get around the reporting. But also by negligence, you can of course introduce serious risk, as always in any programming language. But a really key aspect to understand about SAP ABAP code: whenever you are in the program of the ABAP code, you have, in theory, root-like access on the application level. That's why you need to safeguard with authorization checks and your application context, because even deleting critical system tables without authorization, as soon as you have the authorization to start a report, let's say, so as an example, you do not have the authorization per se to use SO01 creation of new users, but you have the authorization to execute a report which does it, then of course your role concept didn't help you, as the loophole was in the ABAP code.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I also have some experience from the last 20 years, and when we were looking to historical ABAP code at customers, we always found magic programs doing something like copying files and transports and creating users, locking users. So I think in all the systems running longer than a year, you find such a report. But this is a good guidance for the customers. Whenever you think about code scan, also think about code scan on the old applications, not starting at that point where you introduce the application, rescan everything which is old and just wipe out or block all the reports which are in the system, because there's always a lot of crap and harmful functionality somewhere in the basement.
Good. This question's come through, and I don't think the answer it's specifically about code scanning, but vulnerabilities in general, so patches, misconfigurations, settings in system. But can we fix any of these issues automatically?
Yes. So when we talk especially about the patching, that's one of the most critical parts about SAP security. Because after typically in our honeypots, after Patch Tuesday, Madness Wednesday follows, we see that people are actively trying to exploit. And therefore, yes, there is actually a quite big need, and we address that, of course, with our patch management. With our patch management, we help you to automatically identify outstanding patches across your landscape. So ABAP stack, Java stack, for example, BobJ, Web Dispatcher, Zap Router. We prioritize it for you, give you like a work list, and for selected checks, for selected patches for the ABAP stack, we can also perform auto patching. So it's a shopping cart based principle. You do not have to reiterate and compare versions, for example, of the SAP system tied to that very node. So we save you a lot of time, and then actually here also automate the remediation.
Right. We've got a lot of questions coming through. Let's see if we can whiz through some of these really quick if we can. So do we have an API that we can, so that checks and scans can be triggered from within CI/CD flows?
Theoretically,
for
all is
example,
possible.
ADO pipelines, GitHub. Yeah.
No.
Theoretically,
So maybe let me answer this. Right now, we only have a Visual Studio Code extension, but with next release in Q3, not sure, I think it's in September, we will also focus on the CI/CD implementation for Jenkins and Git integrations. And we will launch the first version of it. And what is important, we always work here with customer feedback a lot, just to say, and optimize based on the customer needs, because we try to avoid making our own solution no one needs. We always want to solve the customer pains here. And so we closely work for this kind of implementations with our customers together.
Right. And while we're on code scanning, one more question directly about this is, how do we differ from SAP standard checks like ATC or Code Inspector? I think you've covered it quite a bit already, Clemens, but just in a short sentence. Yeah.
So Pavlok is focusing on security and compliance, and SAP ATC, which is free, obviously, is focusing on